Chapter 2: Voices of Dissent. In the early years of his life, the heretic's insatiable curiosity set him apart, even within his own family. His relentless questioning often left them exasperated and uncomfortable, for his inquiries delved into territories that challenged their firmly held beliefs. His family struggled to provide satisfactory answers to questions that defied easy explanations. "Why do we have rules?" he would persist, his young eyes brimming with wonder. The simplicity of childhood had not dulled his curiosity but instead sharpened it, leading him to question the very foundations of the rules that governed their lives. "What is the purpose of a government?" he would inquire, unaware that his questions were slowly unraveling the comfortable certainties his family held dear. These questions were unsettling, prompting uncomfortable discussions at the dinner table and exposing fault lines in their understanding of the world. The heretic's family, unable to offer answers that satisfied his thirst for knowledge, often responded with frustration and impatience. They urged him to conform, to accept the world as it was, and to stop asking questions that threatened to disrupt their settled existence. As he grew older, the heretic's curiosity only deepened, but his family's tolerance for his questions waned. They saw his relentless inquiry as a challenge to their authority and the societal norms they had embraced. Instead of nurturing his intellectual growth, they discouraged it, warning him to stay in line and not rock the boat. In those early years, the heretic's family inadvertently stifled his natural curiosity, inadvertently shaping a young mind that learned to keep its questions to itself. It was a childhood marked by a growing divide between his own unquenchable curiosity and the stifling conformity of his family's expectations. The years would pass, and the heretic's desire to question and challenge would find new outlets beyond the confines of his family home. But the early lack of support and understanding from those closest to him would remain a poignant reminder of the struggles he faced on his journey to become a vocal critic of the society that prized conformity above all else. In the early years of his life, the heretic's insatiable curiosity set him apart from his family, often leaving them bewildered and uneasy. His relentless questioning, which delved into territories that challenged their firmly held beliefs, was met with frustration and impatience rather than encouragement. "Why do we have rules?" he would persist, his young eyes brimming with wonder. These questions, though innocent, seemed to threaten the comfortable order of their household, prompting uneasy discussions and disagreements. "What is the purpose of a government?" he would inquire, unaware of the discomfort his questions stirred in his family. These inquiries, rather than sparking thoughtful discussions, often led to tense moments at the dinner table, with his family struggling to provide answers that satisfied his thirst for understanding. The heretic's family, unable to offer answers that quelled his relentless curiosity, often responded with exasperation. They urged him to conform, to accept the world as it was, and to stop asking questions that they saw as challenging their authority and societal norms. As he grew older, the heretic's curiosity continued to deepen, but his family's tolerance for his questions waned. They feared that his relentless inquiry would lead to rebellion, disrupt their settled existence, and potentially subject them to scrutiny and suspicion. In those early years, the heretic's family inadvertently stifled his natural curiosity, inadvertently shaping a young mind that learned to keep its questions to itself. It was a childhood marked by a growing divide between his unquenchable curiosity and the stifling conformity of his family's expectations. The years would pass, and the heretic's desire to question and challenge would find new outlets beyond the confines of his family home. But the early lack of support and understanding from those closest to him would remain a poignant reminder of the struggles he faced on his journey to become a vocal critic of the society that prized conformity above all else. As the heretic delved into the pages of the books that filled his room, he embarked on a transformative intellectual journey. The words of thinkers who had dared to challenge the status quo became his guiding stars, illuminating a path of dissent and discovery. He read about individuals who had envisioned a world where governments were not mere enforcers of conformity but true protectors of their citizens' rights and freedoms. The heretic devoured the writings of philosophers and political theorists who had paved the way for his own burgeoning ideas, individuals who had been unafraid to question the prevailing norms of their times. Among the luminaries he encountered were Enlightenment philosophers who had championed the primacy of reason, liberty, and the inherent rights of individuals. Their ideas, once deemed radical, were like a revelation to the heretic, offering him a framework for understanding the world that went beyond the rigid constraints of his own society. He read about revolutionaries who had risen against oppressive regimes, fighting for a world where the people held the power to shape their own destinies. Their stories filled him with a sense of awe and inspiration, demonstrating that the courage to challenge the status quo could lead to profound change. The Heretic's Room, once a sanctuary of intellectual exploration, became a treasure trove of wisdom and inspiration. His shelves were lined with the works of these visionary thinkers, their words seeping into his consciousness and shaping his worldview. He annotated their writings, underlining passages that resonated with his own burgeoning convictions and scrawling notes in the margins. With each page he turned and each idea he absorbed, the heretic's understanding of the world deepened. He began to formulate his own vision of a society where governments were not oppressive forces but guardians of individual rights and freedoms, where conformity gave way to diversity, and where dissent was not a crime but a cherished aspect of civic life. As he continued to explore the ideas of these radical thinkers, the heretic felt a growing sense of purpose. Their words served as a compass, guiding him toward a destiny where he would challenge the unquestionable norms of his society. He knew that his path was not an easy one, but he was prepared to walk it, armed with the wisdom of those who had dared to question before him. In the pages of those books, the heretic found not only knowledge but also a sense of kinship with thinkers who had longed for a world where freedom and justice prevailed. Their ideas would fuel his growing rebellion against the oppressive order of his own city, inspiring him to stand up for a vision of society that celebrated individuality and the relentless pursuit of truth. In the midst of his extensive readings, one influential figure emerged as a lodestar in the heretic's intellectual journey, Lysander Spooner, a long-forgotten philosopher whose ideas resonated with a profound and lasting impact. Among the volumes that filled the heretic's room, the tattered pages of Spooner's book, No Treason, The Constitution of No Authority, stood out as a beacon of dissent. Within the pages of that old book, the heretic encountered a treasure trove of musings on liberty, justice, and the inalienable rights of civilians. Spooner's words were not just eloquent, they were a passionate and unflinching critique of the very foundations of governmental authority. His arguments challenged the prevailing dogmas of the time and called into question the legitimacy of government itself. Spooner's central thesis, that the Constitution held no authority whatsoever because it had not been adopted and signed by the current-day governments, struck a deep chord within the heretic's heart and mind. The audacity of such a claim, grounded in historical analysis and philosophical reasoning, resonated with an intensity that bordered on obsession. As he devoured Spooner's words, the heretic found a kindred spirit, someone who shared his unwavering conviction that the rights of man and the right to travel were not mere privileges bestowed by government but fundamental human rights that should never be denied except in the presence of concrete and imminent evidence of a threat to safety and welfare. It was a revelation that fortified his own beliefs and gave voice to the ideas he had long held in his heart. Spooner's book became the heretic's constant companion, its fragile pages bearing witness to his fervent engagement with its ideas. He read and reread its passages, underlining key arguments and annotating the margins with his own thoughts and reflections. It was a silent dialogue with a long-departed author who had articulated the very ideals that had been taking root in the heretic's own soul. In Spooner's writings, the heretic found not just a mentor but a kindred spirit who had longed for a world where freedom, justice, and individual rights prevailed. Spooner's words became the cornerstone of his philosophy, reinforcing his belief in the sanctity of the right to travel and the inherent rights of civilians. The heretic's room, once a place of intellectual exploration, became a shrine to Spooner's ideas. The book's influence extended beyond its pages, shaping the heretic's worldview and fueling his growing rebellion against the oppressive order of his own city. It was a testament to the enduring power of ideas, and the heretic was determined to share his newfound vision of a more just and enlightened world with those willing to listen, no matter the risks or obstacles that lay ahead. The heretic's evolving worldview was not limited to the pages of books or the words of long-forgotten philosophers. It was also shaped by the powerful stories of dissenters who had dared to challenge oppressive regimes and fight for the rights of the individual. Their tales of courage and unwavering determination to make the world a more just and equitable place resonated deeply with him, serving as a wellspring of inspiration and fortitude. He admired these dissenters, whose names might never make it into the history books, but whose actions had left an indelible mark on the course of human events. Their stories were not just narratives of rebellion, they were testaments to the enduring spirit of those who refused to accept the status quo and who dared to defy the seemingly insurmountable forces of oppression. As the heretic delved into these tales, he encountered individuals who had faced unimaginable adversity, yet had persevered in their pursuit of justice and liberty. He read about the sacrifices they had made, the risks they had taken, and the hardships they had endured, all in the name of principles that transcended their own self-interest. These dissenters were not mere historical figures to the heretic, they were beacons of hope and examples of the change that a single individual, armed with conviction and determination, could bring about in the world. Their stories filled him with a sense of awe and a profound belief in the power of dissent to effect change. Their actions served as a reminder that the struggle for justice and liberty was not an abstract concept but a tangible and achievable goal. The heretic saw in their stories the embodiment of his own aspirations, to challenge the established norms of his society, to speak truth to power, and to champion the inherent rights of individuals. As he absorbed these tales of dissent, the heretic's resolve grew stronger. He knew that the path of dissent was not an easy one, fraught with dangers and uncertainties, but he also understood that it was a path worth treading. These stories of dissenters, who had faced adversity with unwavering determination, fueled his own desire to question the established norms of his society, to challenge the unquestionable, and to advocate for a world where individual rights and freedoms were cherished above all else. The heretic was inspired not only by the ideas he had encountered in books, but also by the living legacies of those who had taken a stand against oppression. Their stories became a source of strength, fortifying his commitment to his own ideals and propelling him forward on his journey as a vocal critic of the society that prized conformity above all else. As the heretic continued to mature, his voice grew ever more resolute and vocal in the face of societal conformity. He found himself inexorably drawn to gatherings where like-minded individuals congregated to engage in thought-provoking discussions and explore ideas that courageously challenged the prevailing status quo. These gatherings became the crucible where his beliefs and convictions were forged into a potent force for change. At these meetings, the heretic emerged as an eloquent speaker, capable of passionately articulating his deeply held beliefs about the role of government and the paramount importance of safeguarding individual rights. His words resonated with those who, like him, questioned the unquestionable and yearned for a society that celebrated dissent as a catalyst for progress. He spoke with conviction, his words cutting through the stifling atmosphere of conformity that had long dominated his city. The heretic's speeches were not just eloquent, they were a clarion call for a world where governments existed to protect and uphold the rights of their citizens, not to stifle individuality or curtail freedom. His message struck a chord with those who had long harbored doubts but had been afraid to voice them. The heretic became a beacon of hope, inspiring others to join him in his mission to challenge the established norms of their society. Together, they formed a community of free thinkers, united by their shared belief in the power of dissent to effect meaningful change. The heretic's influence extended beyond the confines of these gatherings. His impassioned speeches and incisive essays found their way into underground publications, clandestinely circulated among those who hungered for alternative perspectives. He became a symbol of resistance, a voice that emboldened others to question, to challenge, and to demand a society that valued individual rights above all else. But with the growing influence of his voice came the inevitable ire of those in power. The authorities saw the heretic as a threat, a voice that needed to be silenced to preserve the fragile equilibrium of their tightly controlled society. They regarded him as a disruptor, a force that undermined their authority and the order they had established. Yet, the heretic was undeterred. He knew that his mission was not without risks, but he also understood that the price of silence was a society devoid of critical thought and individual freedom. He continued to speak truth to power, to challenge the unquestionable norms, and to remind the world that in a society that prized conformity, dissent could be the catalyst for change. As the heretic's voice grew louder and more resolute, he became not just a critic but a visionary, a man whose beliefs and convictions would shape the destiny of his city and leave an enduring legacy for those who dared to dream of a world where justice and liberty prevailed. Amid the vibrant gatherings of free thinkers and dissenters, the heretic found not only a platform for his ideas but also a kindred spirit, a close ally whose beliefs and convictions resonated harmoniously with his own. Their meeting was serendipitous, a fateful encounter that would alter the course of their lives and the destiny of their city. Their alliance was forged in the crucible of shared ideals and mutual respect, a partnership that gave birth to a powerful and unyielding force for change. Together, they became a formidable duo, their voices blending in perfect harmony against the backdrop of a society that valued conformity above all else. The bond between the heretic and his ally was not just one of shared ideology but also of shared purpose. They saw in each other the unwavering commitment to challenge the established norms of their city, to speak truth to power, and to advocate for a world where individual rights and freedoms were cherished above all else. Their partnership extended beyond the confines of intellectual gatherings. They collaborated on essays, speeches, and initiatives that boldly challenged the status quo. Their collective efforts were a symphony of dissent, resonating with those who hungered for change and inspiring others to join their cause. As a team, they navigated the treacherous waters of opposition and intimidation from those in power. Their alliance served as a source of mutual strength, enabling them to weather the storms of adversity and continue their unwavering pursuit of justice and liberty. Their voices, once separate and isolated, now carried the weight of a shared vision. They stood as living testaments to the power of partnership, demonstrating that the strength of conviction multiplied when joined with like-minded individuals. Together, the heretic and his ally became champions of dissent, symbols of hope for a brighter future, and relentless advocates for a society that valued individuality, freedom, and the relentless pursuit of truth. Their alliance was a beacon of resistance in a world that often sought to suppress dissent, a testament to the enduring power of collaboration in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges. The heretic's journey was just beginning, but it was a path illuminated by the wisdom of philosophers and the courage of dissenters who had come before him. Armed with their ideas and inspired by their unwavering determination, he was ready to embark on a mission to challenge the established order, to question the very purpose of government, and to remind the world that in a society that often stifled individuality, dissent could be the spark that ignited change. With the knowledge he had acquired and the convictions that burned within him, the heretic stood at the threshold of a new chapter in his life. He knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, that he would face opposition, intimidation, and perhaps even persecution. But he was undeterred, for he understood that the cost of silence was a society devoid of critical thought, a world where conformity reigned supreme. The heretic was driven by a deep sense of purpose, a calling to challenge the unquestionable norms that had held his city in their grip for far too long. He was determined to use his voice and his beliefs as tools of transformation, to advocate for a society where governments existed not as masters but as servants of the people, where individual rights were cherished, and where the pursuit of justice and liberty was a cherished endeavor. As he took his first steps on this perilous journey, the heretic was not alone. He had found allies who shared his ideals and convictions, a community of free thinkers and dissenters who stood by his side. Together, they formed a collective force for change, a united front against the suffocating conformity of their society. The heretic knew that his mission was not just about challenging the status quo, it was about inspiring others to question, to challenge, and to demand a world that celebrated individuality and the relentless pursuit of truth. He understood that the power of dissent lay not in the words of one person, but in the collective voice of many. As he moved forward, the heretic carried with him the wisdom of philosophers and the legacy of dissenters who had paved the way. He was ready to face the trials and tribulations that awaited him, for he knew that his journey was not just about himself, but about the countless others who longed for a world where justice and liberty prevailed. With each word he spoke, each idea he shared, and each challenge he posed, the heretic was determined to remind the world that in a society that often prized conformity, dissent could be the catalyst for change, the spark that ignited a brighter and freer future for all.